Welcome back to an instant reaction edition of the Knight Report podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again, my co-host, Richie Schneiderate. Richie, that offensive coaching staff for the football team is starting to round out. It was just announced about an hour ago that Rutgers is hiring former Rutgers offensive coordinator Dave Brock to join the program as the wide receivers coach, which is shifting Demir Shaw to running backs coach and Andy Aurich to tight ends coach. This one just kind of follows in line with what Schiano has shown is what he values in hiring coaches, is some kind of connection either directly to Schiano or directly to members of his coaching staff. So first, let's talk about the connections that Dave Brock has to Rutgers. I'll let you just kind of go off there.
Yeah, so this is obviously Dave Brock was the OC back in 2012 under Kyle Flood. Yep. He was only here for a year before he went over to Delaware, or got poached technically, you could say.
He got hired. Yeah.
It's a head coach job, so I mean it's a big job.
Yeah. And this was replacing a legend, Casey Keeler. This was a big deal for Delaware football because that was a coach that brought them a national championship, brought them to the finals in another year. Just a really, really good coach for a long time. And this is a hire that they knew that they wanted to nail. Didn't necessarily work out for him, but go on, King.
So yeah, I mean, it's weird because you go throughout their resumes and both of their, like, if you go at Soraka's resume and Dave Brock's resume, you look at back and forth and it's like, all right, he was at Delaware in 2012, he was there in 2011, and then he flip flops kind of. So it was really close to them having a couple connections, and all of a sudden I keep going back. I'm like, what the hell? Where did I see Western Connecticut State before? And I'm like, oh shit, wait, it's on both of theirs. So 91 to 93, Dave Brock was the DB's coach at Western Connecticut State. 92 was the year where they, I guess, met each other or coached with one another. He was the Western Connecticut, Kirk Soraka was the Western Connecticut State pass game coordinator and wide receivers coach. So their units were going after each other nonstop and in practice every day pretty much. And then that's the only connection I can really find between the two of them. So they do know each other. They obviously both coached at Rutgers in the past, so I'm sure they know each other from that aspect as well. But yeah, I mean, Dave Brock has a pretty good resume. He's coached so many receivers in his past, whether it be Hakeem Nicks at North Carolina, who was it, Jordy Nelson at Kansas State, Brandon Coleman at Rutgers, Marquise Colston at Hofstra. Like, the list goes on. And then you can go to his recent history with Atlanta, where he was coaching Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu, Julio Jones. At one point, I think Atlanta was considered, during his tenure with Atlanta, they were considered one of the better, if not best, wide receiver corps in the NFL one of those years. I forget what year that was, but I know it's one of those years he was there. So, I mean, he obviously got let go from there. Things changed. He was there originally with Dan Quinn as the head coach. Obviously, they kind of shit-canned him a little bit, and then he went down to Dallas. But besides the point, that just happens with coaching changes. They're going to get their own guys in, and this seems like a pretty good hire. I'm intrigued. So we'll see.
Yeah, just kind of going through some of the players you mentioned. So he was the wide receivers coach at Hofstra and helped develop Marquise Colston into a fairly unknown recruit into an NFL star for over a decade. Jordy Nelson was just kind of like a middling player at Kansas State. He had like 669 yards his first year at Kansas State. His second year, he had 547. Dave Brock gets hired as the wide receivers coach in 2007. And then Jordy Nelson just goes thermonuclear. He had 122 catches, 1,606 yards, and 11 touchdowns his final year at Kansas State. Not saying that Brock directly made him a star, but definitely helped his development. Calvin Ridley, the first-round pick for the Falcons, kind of had two decent first 2 years, but under Brock, he had his best career year in 2020 with 90 catches for 1,374 yards and 9 touchdowns. It just seems like he's developed players everywhere he's gone. I can't really speak to his recruiting prowess, but everywhere he's gone, he's had guys get developed. Like his wide receiver room at North Carolina, you already mentioned Hakeem Nicks, but he had 2 other NFL receivers in Jesse Holley and Brandon Tate there as well. He coached tight ends for Boston College for 3 years between 2009 and 2011 before he got hired as Rutgers offensive coordinator. And he wasn't that bad as offensive coordinator for Rutgers in 2012. Rutgers had a pretty good offense under Gary Nova. I think Leonte Crew was there as well. Or was that the following year.
I forgot about Leonte. Yeah, you're right.
So Leonte Peru, Rutgers had its first Big East title that year, which is a 4-way split. It's tough to really call that a Big East title. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, he's just had a history of kind of success wherever he's gone outside of the Delaware head coaching job. As an assistant, though, it's hard to really poke holes in his resumes. And when you've coached in the NFL, you can point to all these guys that kids know and watched on TV and are legends, like Julio Jones, the first ballot Hall of Famer. You coached him. It's a solid hire, but it continues to be plucked from the Schiano tree, either if it's one branch out or two branches out. Mm-hmm. It's pretty clear what he values. And I kind of want to talk about what he values because it seems like Schiano is learning a lesson here in terms of hiring, inexperienced coaches he thinks can be good recruiters. Hasn't really worked out for him, from Augie Hoffman to Coach Nuns, who he kept on from the last staff. Demir Shaw has been okay as a coach, I guess, but I think he thought he'd be the potential replacement for Fran as a recruiter. And look what he's done this offseason in terms of who he's hired. He's hired Kirk Soraka, who's been an offensive coordinator now for over a decade since he left Rutgers. He hired Dave Brock, who's got 30 years of coaching experience at all levels of college football, from the FCS level to the Power 5 level and then the NFL level. And I'd imagine that we're going to probably hire a similar profiled coach when we eventually hire our offensive line coach. But what else sticks out to you about Dave Brock?
But recruiting wise, like you said, I don't think he's really that good of a recruiter. But he did recruit Hakeem Nicks, and obviously he saw something with him, brought him to North Carolina. And other than that, though, I can't really find much about him recruiting at Rutgers I know it was one season, so it's hard to tell. I was looking at the tight ends in Boston College for those couple years. Nothing really crazy. I forget the guy's name. I just had it pulled up. Liam something. He had like 200 yards, 300 yards, 200 yards. Nothing insane. Not a lot of receptions either. So I know that's intriguing just because Soraka loves to use the tight ends, it seems like. But he seems like every time he's been a coordinator, it just hasn't worked out. But when he's been a wide receivers coach, it's worked out phenomenally, whether it be Kansas State, North Carolina, who was the other one? The Falcons, So yeah, this just seems like a pretty good hire. And even as the head coach, he had 2 seasons at Delaware where it was 7 wins and 6 wins. And considering it's your first 2 years, it's really not that bad. Now, did things tail off a little bit towards the end? Yeah. But again, this is just a guy who is starting to, I think he's kind of realizing like, all right, like maybe I'm not a coordinator, and it's not for everybody. So maybe he's just a position coach, and this is going to work out for him. And maybe he spring-loads it into another job as an OC again. Or maybe he just stays here for a while as wide receivers coach, which I think there's a really high possibility of, considering he's a Jersey native and he's already 55, going to be 56 soon. So maybe you just want to end your career on a nice little high note of coaching receivers for Schiano and crew.
Yeah, he's a South Jersey guy. He's from Morristown, so he knows the area well. I guess we'll kind of see. It's TBD what he is as a recruiter, because he hasn't been a college position coach in over a decade. He hasn't been in college since 2016, so maybe he's learned a few tricks. Maybe he wants to get back out there. Some people, really miss you're either all about being a college coach or you're all about being a professional coach. Like either you just want to coach or you really like building those relationships and developing, young players into men and to NFL level prospects. Are you hearing anything regarding the open offensive line coach job? Because that seems to be the only opening on the staff now that we're aware of.
Yeah, no, nothing really new. I did tell people yesterday on our board that we're gonna add who did I say I was gonna add? I was gonna add someone to the board. It's a big name.
Did we
guy
just talk about him?
No, we didn't talk. Well, I'm going to add him in a second, but there was someone else I was going to add to the board.
Sure.
I can't remember for shit. I'm completely lost these past couple of days just because we're doing like 3 pods a week now, and it's like, what the fuck is going on? But no, I mean, the one name I'd probably keep a close eye on, bring back Robo. Damian Robolewski.
Yep.
Look at that. I got the pronunciation sort of right. It would make a lot of sense. He's the assistant head coach / O-line coach at James Madison. There's your Harris Simiak and Corey Heatherman connection. He was 04 to 05 Hofstra. No, he wasn't there at Hofstra with he was also the O-line coach, assistant head coach / recruiting coordinator from 2007 to 2011 at Delaware, who was at Delaware during that time. I was going to let you say it, but it's all good. No, actually, I think it was Kirk Soraka. Kirk Soraka was there in 2012. No, am I doing this wrong? I'm doing this wrong. Kirk Soraka was OC / QB's coach in 2007, and Damian Rogoleski was O-line coach, associate head coach in 2007. So they have a connection there as well. So he knows Soraka. He knows Harris Simiak. He's been at Rutgers. This checks all the boxes. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, he's coached with Brock at Rutgers and at and like you said, Kirk at Delaware. He's previously been at Rutgers. He kind of knows what to expect. He's also been everywhere the last few stops for a long time. So he's at Delaware for 5 years. He's at Rutgers for 2 years. He's at Elon for 5 years. And now he's been at James Madison for the last 4 years. So you don't keep a job that long if you're not good at what you're doing, and you also don't stay at a job that long unless you're fairly loyal. So I think this one makes a lot of sense. And he's only 46 years old. He's still a young guy. Everybody who speaks about Robo is just glowing. If you were talking about some of the quotes about how hyped up was it Frank Cignetti, the current head coach?
Kurt
Cignetti was when he hired him at James Madison, basically saying that he's like one of the best coaches I've ever been around. Everybody loves him. I can't wait to get him on campus. Like I'm just over the moon to get him. And this kind of fits into the separations of Schiano. Like he's only like 2 branches down. This would make a lot of sense. Good.
Yeah. No, I mean, no, it makes a ton of sense. I know there was I guess some, not hatred, but there was some hype around Robo when he first came here. And then I guess it didn't really work out. So then that backfired. But it does seem like he's still got a ton of hype around him as an O-line coach. And he might be a decent recruiter too. He's relatively young still, so he can connect with these guys.
And I think there's something to be said, as you get more experience, you become better at your job. And this is evident with Kirk Soraka. People weren't necessarily happy with how his final year went at Rutgers, but he's really shown that he's a very high level offensive mind and offensive coordinator in his last 2 stops. And the same thing could be for Robo. He had probably all the raw tools to be an excellent coach, but when he was hired at Rutgers, he was only 35 years old. Now he's got 10 more years of experience. He's got a few more stops. He knows the area well. I think this one would make a lot of sense. We'll see, though. Yeah.
Now, I wanted to dive in a little bit into the other movement. So now Aldrich has been tight ends coach before at Princeton, so that's not too crazy. The Demir Shaw one intrigues me a little bit because he's never been a running backs coach before. He's been mostly a wide receivers coach, and you can probably hear my dog in the background, and I can't do anything about that at the moment. So, but yeah, no. So it's definitely an interesting one because I don't know how he'll do. And now you're putting a lot of this recruiting on guys like Demir Shaw and Aldrich and Lascari and Watson and Orphy, because those are supposed to be your better recruiters of the bunch. And you're putting a ton of pressure on them to make it happen recruiting wise, because it doesn't seem like Dave Brock's the greatest recruiter in the world, which is fine. If he can develop talent, who the hell cares?
Yep.
And same thing with Soraka. A lot of people I've talked to, they're like, who's Kirk Soraka? And I'm like, okay, fair enough. He's not the sexiest hire in the world, but he's a good OC. So now it's another player development guy.
Yep.
So it's getting you're putting a lot of pressure on a couple of these guys on staff to be these main recruiters. And I think that's where it's going to be interesting, especially because a guy like Dave Brock comes in as wide receivers coach. Assistant coaches have to recruit. If you're a coordinator, you can get away without recruiting for the most part. You'll still recruit here and there. Harris Simiak's still going out and about and checking out schools and talking to recruits. But for the most part, it's going to be your assistants. And this guy hasn't been an assistant coach in college football since his days at Rutgers, pretty much. So it's a little concerning because the game has changed completely too with NIL and everything. And that's where it's going to get tricky. He's going to have to learn that one real quick. Why can't I get this kid? I've been talking to him nonstop.
Yep.
Oh, it's because he has a $1.2 million offer on the other side. That makes sense. So it's definitely going to be intriguing to see how these guys still recruit. Because end of the day, recruiting is 65, 75% of the job still. That's basically it. So we'll see. And then I don't know if for O-line coach you also need a player development guy because you need to develop those guys more than arguably anyone else on the team. Yep. So I don't know if you're putting the pressure straight up on Shaw, Ulrich, Orphy, Watson, because I don't know if the other guys are really as good as recruiters as those four I just named.
Yeah, I agree. Seems like Schiano's leaning heavily towards strong X's and O's guys over strong recruiters, probably in a large part because those guys are easier to land and more interested in, the pitch of just being a strong coach versus having to be on the road and, busting your ass recruiting. I mean, it's part of the job regardless, though. So I guess we'll see. That's the one dot that we seem to, connect and maybe ends up being true. The other O-line coach that made a lot of sense to me is Brian Callahan, that we've already kind of discussed, who's been the offensive line coach under Soraka at Western Michigan. He's been offensive line coach under Soraka at Minnesota. He's been at both stops for just as long as Soraka had for the most part. So he's very loyal to, it sounds like, to Fleck too. So I don't know if that would happen, but that's a dot that makes a lot of sense to connect.
I remembered his other name. Figured it out. Ed Warner.
Go for it.
Warner?
Yes, Ed Warner. Yes, you'd make a lot of sense too. He was the offensive line coach. I don't know if he was the offensive. He coached with Schiano at Ohio State, and then he went on to have a really successful stint as the Michigan offensive line coach. Like
prior to that, he was Minnesota's O-line coach for a year under Soraka. So
yep, he was Minnesota's offensive line coach under Soraka for a year. And now he's currently the assistant head coach and offensive line coach at FAU. And, I can only imagine what it's like living in Boca. It's got to be nice weather-wise. But you got to think that Rutgers could probably blow his current salary out of the water. So I guess we'll see there. Because I think he's coaching – is Tom Herman now the head coach at FAU, or is that FIU?
That is a good question. I could tell you real quick. But he's also – let's not forget, he's assistant head coach. He's run game coordinator and O-line coach. So this man's got all the titles in the world. I'm sure they've probably exhausted whatever they could. It is Tom Herman. They exhausted whatever they could money-wise in order to keep him. So now it's at the point where it's like, all right, well, we have no more money. Let's see if Rutgers offers or another Power 5 offers. He's gone. Like, nothing we could do. But ton of experience, Big Ten experience, connections to Schiano, connections to Soraka. This one makes a ton of sense. I think that would be like another home run hire, to be honest.
That would be I was reading about his time at Michigan, and Michigan early on under Harbaugh had a ton of struggles on their offensive line. Warner came in and fixed that almost immediately. They had a really strong run. They started to develop that kind of identity that you see now the last few years under Michigan. And fans were kind of up in arms when he got let go because he got fired after the 2020 season, because it's like, this guy's been one of our best coaches. Why are we firing him? Didn't really make sense. And he's been at FAU now. It's going to be his third season this upcoming season, and he's now on his second coaching staff there. So who knows? He's 61 years old. Some people, they just kind of want to go somewhere and stay somewhere where they're both appreciated and also where they're comfortable. Maybe he's comfortable there. We'll see. I don't know. He makes a lot of sense, though.
Well, like you said, Boca is something else down there. So, yeah. But hey, Florida Heat kind of stinks, especially for a guy that's been in the North for the majority of his career, between Michigan State, Army, Illinois, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, Minnesota. Like, this man's been cold forever. Like, maybe he likes the heat, or maybe he's just like, wow, this kind of stinks. Like, but yeah, no, definitely another name to keep an eye on.
Yep. And to recap, the three names we're thinking right now would make a lot of sense for the offensive line coaching job. Damian Robleski, who's formerly at Rutgers, Ed Warner, who has connections to the staff, and also help me out here. Who's the third
one? I forget. Oh, Tinfoil Hat Man?
No, not Kyle Floyd.
Oh, we'll get to. Oh, come on, man. There's a chance.
We're not going to do that. We just talked three names, though.
I know. Oh, who's the third name? I don't think there was a third name. Wasn't it just the two? It's just Bill Kennedy.
It was Bill. Bill Callahan or Brian Callahan.
Brian Callahan, and then there's Bill Kenny, who's also got connections to Soraka during his time at Western Michigan, I believe it was.
Yeah,
but that's another name we'll talk for another day. But hear me out. There was a certain coach at Rutgers for several years under Schiano, under Soraka. Brought Dave Brock to the Falcons with him. Brought Dave Brock to Texas with him last year.
Yeah. Go on.
Kyle Flood. The return of the legend. He's a great recruiter, a developer of talent. He's probably not leaving his cushy OC job at Texas whatsoever, but the connections are there. They also worked at Hofstra together back in late 90s, early 2000s. And Delaware. Like, it makes too much sense.
Yeah. There's connections, but
a lot. Wait a bit.
I think this is just pandering at this point. We both know that's not happening.
No, it's not. But it's funny too. The connections are there. Like, there's everything possible.
Yeah. And, he was Schiano's guy for forever. And Schiano loves him, from what I understand. So,
yeah, of course.
All right.
Now he's Sarkisian's guy.
Now he's Sarkisian's guy. He won a title at Alabama. He's got a good life. He's got a cushy gig down in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
The number one recruit in the country the last 3 years. 2 of the last 3 years, with Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning now. But let's talk.
Still has a house in Jersey, too.
Does he? Interesting.
Yes. Yeah, so something to watch.
Something to watch. I would not hold my breath there, everybody at home.
Yeah.
We're mainly just saying it to fuck around. We do have a basketball game tonight. Rutgers is facing off against Michigan State at the Breslin Center in East Lansing. Rutgers has never won there. Rutgers in its history is 0-4 at East Lansing. Its most recent game coming in the 2020-21 season there. They've been really hot recently. I think in December they went, or the last 8 games, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they had a 7-game winning streak. They currently have lost their last 2 games at Illinois and home against Purdue in a 1-point loss. But prior to that, they were just on fire. They were kind of squeaking out a lot of games, but they were playing really well. Their 3 losses in conference this year are to Purdue, Illinois, and home against Northwestern. I thought that was interesting because Northwestern, if you're looking for like a junior version of Rutgers in the league, it's definitely Northwestern. And they lost at home by 7 to Northwestern. So it seems like, and just from that one game alone, they might struggle with a team like Rutgers, who plays good defense and just causes a lot of agita when you're taking, a press most of the game. I don't know if that's the strategy they're going to go with, but how do you feel about tonight's game against Michigan State?
I'm eerily confident. I'm riding this high off the basketball team for the past couple games, recruiting wise, everything else. I'm kind of like pretty confident in this team, and I was looking at the numbers today, and I'm like, holy shit, Rutgers has a better scoring offense, a better scoring defense. Obviously, I like to think Rutgers defense is better. The only thing that like kind of scares me is 3-pointers, which they do hit a decent amount, but it's not much higher than Rutgers. Like Rutgers is hitting them at 32%. They're hitting them at 36%. So it's really not that big a deal. Free throws are about equal. Rebounding, Rutgers kind of has the advantage offensively. Defensively, it's a 2-point or 2 rebound difference. But Rutgers has the higher average. I mean, this team's defense, they've been forcing 16 turnovers per game, if I read that correctly. Holy shit. That's big.
Yep.
Compared to like Michigan's only averaging 9 or forcing 9 turnovers per game. This is huge for Rutgers. I think they can snag this win. They're also on a 2-game winning streak against Michigan State, dating back to what was it? Last season, I guess. 2020. Let's see, 2020. Yeah. So yeah, they're dating back to that last season. I think Rutgers pulls this one off. The only reason Michigan State's a favorite is because it's a home court advantage, 3.0 favorite. Rutgers has never win there, so that's going to hurt a little bit. And in terms of spread, and that's pretty much all I really see. Like, I think Rutgers pulls this one out, and I'm very confident in this team. They pull this one out. They're only one game out of first place in the Big Ten from Purdue.
They're a full 1 game out right now. They don't play Purdue again, which
kind of hurts.
It's nice. But... It kind of hurts though because we don't have an opportunity to kind of what is it called? Fulfill our own destiny. Yeah, no. Like we don't have our own destiny in our own hands. I know there's a better way to say that, but
yeah.
But we do play. I think Minnesota 2 more times on the schedule, so that's good. Like we do have. I think we have the easiest schedule in the Big Ten moving forward, from what I've heard. Recently. So this is a big game, obviously, because it's one of the teams in the top 5 in the Big Ten. If you look at all the metrics, Rutgers is the better team. Like Rutgers is number 16 in KenPom. Michigan State is number 40. If you look at Bart Torvik, Rutgers is 10th. Michigan State is 42nd. So a lot of the metrics are on Rutgers' side, but it's tough to win on the road. It's tough because, one, the referees in the Big Ten favor home teams, and this isn't against the Rutgers thing. It's home teams get whistles in the Big Ten. It's unfortunate, but we have to accept this as a reality as Rutgers fans. It's just the way it is. And that is a snake pit. And they are going to be fired up. This is a team that, has a very passionate fan base, and this is going to be a game that they sell out, and it's going to be loud, and it's going to be almost as intense as Purdue. It's a 6:30 game, so it's a little early of a tip-off. So maybe that plays in Rutgers' advantage. But I look at the Northwestern game, and that gives me a lot of optimism because they're, like I said, a similar team to Rutgers. They press a lot. They play very tenacious defense, and Michigan State lost at home to Northwestern. So.
Yeah, and if you're bored like at halftime and you got that picture-in-picture, you got the expensive-ass cable, put on Purdue, Minnesota. It's probably going to be a blowout, but it's the Big Ten. You never know. Maybe Minnesota pulls this out, and that would help Rutgers tremendously.
Yep.
But I probably don't see that one happening, to be honest.
Yeah, if you look at Michigan State's losses on the year, so they've lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. 4 of their 6 losses were against top 25 defenses, according to KenPom, in terms of defensive efficiency. So this isn't like the most like complex take, but they've struggled against elite defenses, and Rutgers has an elite defense. Rutgers is ranked 3rd in terms of KenPom's defensive efficiency. So this is a game Rutgers can win, and in all honesty, they're favored to win in Basketball Power Index. They're favored to win KenPom. They're favored to win in Bart Torvik. Bart Torvik has Rutgers as a 1-point favorite in this game. And I think in terms of sports books, Michigan State, I think they were a 2.5-point favorite. I think that line has gone up to a 3-point favorite. Let's check that now.
Yeah.
But
that's what it says on Bracketologist. But
okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, also Big Ten teams, it seems like, obviously they beat up each other quite a bit. It just seems like once you lose, you go on a streak of losing. Once you win, you go on a streak of winning. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games in a row for Michigan State wins. Then all of a sudden they lose to Illinois, they lose to Purdue, and it's like, all right, I see a trend. Like they're going to lose to Rutgers, probably going to lose to Indiana. Then they're just going to bounce back out of nowhere and just get 3 wins in a row. That just seems like the trend throughout the entire Big Ten. So I think Rutgers has this one. You can't say in the bag anymore because it's the Big Ten, but I like to think Rutgers wins this one relatively easily, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say they're going to win it easily, but I think they need to continue to play good defense beyond the arc because they have a few guys who can really shoot it, and Tyson Walker and a few of their other guys on the bench. They've shot pretty well from deep as a team. They're a 37% three-point shooting team as a team, so they've got a lot of shooters. If Rutgers can continue to play that really high-level defense on the perimeter, I think Rutgers has the potential to win this easily, but I don't think it's going to be an easy game, honestly. They played Purdue tight. We played Purdue tight. They won on the road against Wisconsin when they were ranked. But this is going to be a fun game. I'm excited to watch it. I'm glad it's happening like right after work because I don't like having to wait till like 9 o'clock to watch these games like against Northwestern. That was a brutal wait. But
yeah, that's not fun. But well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. This is going to be an interesting one.
Yep. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we hit the road here?
No. I mean, I don't think anything's happening in terms of visitors this weekend. They might have like a couple of smaller name guys, but it sounds like for the most part next weekend will be the other junior day. I expect a ton of big name visitors again, just like last weekend. We had instant reactions from Alex. There's a commitment. There's a hoops commitment. More on Dylan Harper, of course. People are hesitant because they're like, one guy on our board was like, I just get a weird vibe seeing all these articles before a kid commits. And I'm like, yeah, that's because we have a pretty damn good hoops analyst that's been fucking watching every game possible. Yep. Man's went to New York. He's went to Vegas. He's went to Georgia. Like he's been going nuts. I guess shout out to Zach. But yeah, no, I mean, this is what happens. Like hoops is on the rise. We got a hoops recruiting writer. We're posting more hoop stuff. Like it's just how it works. Like football's on the rise. We'll post more football stuff. Like this is just it. Like just get ready because this is. I hate to say it right now. It's a hoop school. I take it back because Dave White's going to yell at me for that one because he yelled at me last time. I said I hate to say it before saying something about hoops. Yep. I don't hate to say it. I love to say it. Yep. Rutgers is a hoop school now and will be for the foreseeable future. With Ace Bailey, with Delquan Warren, with Gavin Griffiths, with Bay Ndongo, with who's the other one in that
Derek
class?
Simpson,
Jamichael Davis, Derek Simpson, Antoine Woolfolk. This is it. This is the roster that's going to make that run that we've been
potentially
waiting
more
for.
too. Potentially more too.
Are you talking chips?
No. Well, obviously, there's if that is our roster going into 2024, 2025, that is a team that should compete for Big Ten titles. And if you're competing for Big Ten titles, you should be competing for national titles. But there's an additional recruit there who could also be in the fold at some point. Maybe a sibling of a former Rutgers great. I don't know. I'm not going to put a name out there, but you guys can connect the dots.
Or son of an NBA champion.
Could be the guy I'm talking about. I don't know.
Couple-time NBA champ.
We'll have to see.
Yeah. Oh, my God. What has happened?
I mean, it almost feels like you're going to wake up from the stream at some point. It is very surreal. I couldn't be happier for the Rutgers basketball program because Pike is the GOAT. I can't say enough good things about that guy. He's just, yeah. And you should know as a Rutgers fan how awesome he is.
Like even as a reporter, like the man writes me a handwritten letter every year saying, "Thank you so much for covering our team. I really appreciate it, Rich. Love what you do. Keep it up." And I'm just like, dude, it gets sent to my old address at my parents' house, and they're like, "You got a letter from Steve Peichel?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this guy is amazing." And she's like, "That's just so nice. Like he doesn't have to do that. Like that's just the man just gets it. He gets how it's supposed to be done." I'll say it. My favorite hire from Rutgers history of all time. Like it's Steve Peichel. Build the statue, figure out the renovation shit, and just put it somewhere there. And that's it. Man needs a statue. I'm done. Like get him a plaque, get him something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Rant over.
It'll be interesting as more coaching positions open up, like how many fan bases are like, we should hire Steve Peichel, thinking that like Rutgers is just going to let him go and that Pike wants to leave. Like, I really get the sense that Pike isn't going anywhere. Like, I don't think he would leave for really any job because Rutgers treats him well. He loves what he's built here. There's not many places where you're going to have that kind of home court advantage. And he's right in the middle of like one of the hottest recruiting beds in the country. And he's shown that he could also recruit nationally too. So I truly do not think he's going anywhere. I think he's going to retire with Rutgers and be kind of the Rutgers version of Coach K.
Well, like I said, there was one spot I thought he might have left for, and that was UConn, but it sounds like it wasn't like he wouldn't even consider really doing that. They went with Hurley. He stayed here. Build him a statue, give him the Izzo contract, give him a lifetime every year. Steve, you want to be here? Yes, I'm in. Okay, up it. Here's the money. Here's the year. Done. We'll do it again next year. We'll talk to you then.
Well, and the dynamic that's really changed the most in the last decade with college sports in general is conference affiliation. Like, if you used to be a Power 5 or Power 6 coach, it was fairly even between, SEC to Big East to ACC to Pac-12. The differences have grown and grown year after year, where a school like UConn, even though Pike went there, they play in the Big East. What they get financially doesn't even hold a candle to what Rutgers gets financially at this point. Yeah. So you're going to have so many baked-in advantages being a Big Ten coach, especially a successful one that has an arena that sells out and one that's going to even have more capacity in the coming years. That's something that you literally, like, unless you have a guy like T. Boone Pickens who's willing to just subsidize the university as a multi-billionaire, like, you're at such a disadvantage when you don't have that kind of level of financial support. So that's another huge reason why I don't think he's leaving.
Plus, there's only 2 super conferences, and you're in one of them. So
and you're in one. We've gone long. I appreciate you guys listening. Stay tuned to the boards because it's obviously another coaching vacancy. There's a game tonight. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe on YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting platform. It really does help grow our audience and get this in the ears and eyes of more Rutgers fans. We've had a really huge growth this past year, and we want to continue it moving forward. We want to get more people viewing. We have a very interesting live show that's coming up. I guess we'll break the news now. We're going to do a live show along with Gio Baker and Austin. I don't know if Austin Johnson's
I don't know if Austin's going to be there.
But Gio's going to be there at the Olive Ranch for the Indiana game on February 7th. We're going to have a live show there. It's through the front office. So anybody obviously who wants to come, feel free to join us. We don't really know how the format's going to work, but I'm sure we'll have guests and we'll have questions from the crowd. And we'll, have some beers, eat some pizza, watch the game, hopefully be celebrating.
I had their wings recently, man. Ooh,
yeah.
Ooh, and their disco fries. Oh, they had my heart.
Yeah, the last time I was there was a few years ago before a Rutgers game. So I'm excited to get back to the Olive Branch and to New Brunswick in general. But
yeah, I forget what game I went to, but they had a watch party recently, and just real quick, and
I remember
the food was great. The setup was awesome. It's going to be a packed house. We're having like 100-something people there, so get there early. I know it's Tuesday night. You could get bombed on a Tuesday night. Who cares? It's not any day that ends in Y. That's how it works for me. But all right, let's end on that.
All right, guys. Once again, thanks for listening. This has been another edition of the Knight Report podcast. Signing off.